Hi again, everybody. Okay, we are going to see where we're at right now. This is against my this is on my neighbor's land, against my better judgment. Anyhow, but it's against my property that we share a boundary line. All right, I've been meaning to make a video about this for a while, and this is a pretty good time of day to do it. Great weather too. The reason it's a good time of day is because of the angle of the sun versus the angle and lay of the trenches. There are some old glass bottles back here from who knows how long. I don't even know if they're how old they are, to be honest with you. This one's probably not that old actually, because it's got a screw lid on it. I don't know what kind. It's a flask. It's got a bird on it. Old Crow. Okay, that's probably not super old. So, probably older than me, but not super old. Anyhow, so what I wanted to point out, I was back here looking around. Of course, I'm a curious, wandering kind, and I wander off in the woods a lot. So, or I used to. Nowadays, I'm too tired and too busy. I wanted to start off at the bottom edge. It's the least showy, least suspicious part of it, in the fact that it looks very benign. Looks like somebody had an old drainage trench for a sewer line. That's kind of what it looks like. It looks like an old drainage trench for a sewer line, or even a ditch for a road. Now, over here, it is nestled up against, there's this rock. This is actually a chunk of the same kind of buggy quartz and iron ore that I have on my property. It just goes down through there towards my neighbor's house. And you'd think, well, surely this is just an old drainage line or something. And it's definitely a hand-dug trench. There's no question it's a hand-dug trench. But from what I can tell of it, of course, that's obviously just like a groundhog or a other critter. That's not part of the prospect. But when you come up here, you think, well, that's just an old trench, and you look across here and you're like, are those trenches? Well, they are. Okay, so we're going to come across here. They all meet up over here, and you think, well, this is a house footing, but it's not. Now, it might have had, I don't know, that it couldn't have had a house on it, but there are no real studies for, if it was a wooden log cabin, I could see that. And, I might be wrong, but except that the way it's dug is not consistent with a house footing. And you come across here, and there's more of this trench here. But if you notice, not only is it split, it terminates. A drainage trench wouldn't just go there and stop, and you wouldn't take two drainage trenches from there, terminate them. What I'm seeing through here, that's a pit. It's just full of trash now because, well, people have been dumping trash in it. But this all, I'm very confident this is all one piece of working here. Again, I think I've made a video, I know I did, of the other side of my property, on the other property on the other side of us, that there's another, see, like, all right, look at how this is dug like that, and it terminates. If it were a house footing, surely, I think what happened is that they were digging, and when they dug this trench first and then dug that trench over on top of it. But if it were a house footing, they wouldn't have filled one trench in. And look here, we've got samples of buggy quartz and iron stained quartz. I'm not for sure if that's what they thought they were looking at. And that's got a lot of quartz in it. It's very white. I think they call it quartz carbonate. Now the other end of this is closed off. I think what they were doing is they were plot sectioning. I think, and I could be wrong. I mean, I'm not a world-leading expert at exploratory trenching, but I'm pretty sure from the looks of it and how old it's been and the fact that it doesn't have any what you call real house debris. It's got junk, but if there were a house building here, and see, like right there, look at that weird little kick. And on top of that, of course, there's a little animal dig that, again, isn't part of it. This little kick right here, it's like they ran into something that they couldn't get around, like the edge of a chunk of iron ore, and they went over and started again, or they started there, you know, and came over here. But anyhow, they plotted this off, measured it, and dug it. And while some would say it's definitely a house foundation, if it is, it's not level. It contours the ground. A house foundation, I've built plenty of houses. I've seen plenty of houses built. There's no stone in it. I mean, a house foundation like this would have to have stone, logically. All the trenches are different depths. But I think they're different depths because it's just the fact the depth of the soil that the prospectors were digging in. And looking at it, I look at the different nature of the soil. And knowing the soil on my ground, this is very much like they just dug to a surface level. And when they found what they found, they either didn't like what they found, or they just didn't have enough resources to follow up on it. Again, we are in an old mining district, so, and you've seen me show, since it is about this, and I, you know, been over there earlier making videos about it, and I'll give you an update on how exposed both the iron on my property is. Is this hematite? No, that's not hematite. It's iron-soaked sandstone. Anyhow, this is barren mostly because the soil is so shallow and rocky. Not because the soil isn't fertile, but because it's shallow. And so where it doesn't have any root, it can't grow very much but cedar trees. And it has been an open field in the past. All this was one time. And even though there are slight soft washes in here, there's no heavy erosion. That other being all straight lines, you know it isn't a gully, especially with 90-degree lines and jogs and dead-end terminations that would normally... See, there's a little wash right there. Starts out shallow, gets deeper by one point and zigzags as it goes, and then shallows out again as it tapers off on the side. So clearly a distinct difference between a trench and a wash, or gully, you know, whatever you want to call it. But again, to clarify, the reason I'm doing this is, again, is just so that you know that this is absolutely why I'm making this video. These last washes, the rains we had, have really exposed. In fact, you can even see it right here to some extent. There's iron ore right there. And again, this is very light hematite iron ore. This is not magnetite. This is not supergene, or like on the other side of my property, which I'll mention that here in a minute. Anyhow, so this is shallow also because it's on top of clay. It's a vein that's on top of clay that used to be mudstone shale. So the shale's rotted out from underneath the ore at this point. Now you get up here, this same vein goes all the way across my property. 100% of the way across my property. Across that property, over that hill, and it's about 11,000 acres, roughly. And I'm sure it'd take a lot more careful measurement to find out exactly how much it is. But anyhow, it comes through here, and it goes all the way through my land and out the other side. Well, and coming over here, we get back down into it, actually, because it's a very close to the surface deposit, and it goes right through here. Again, it's not super evident, except there's a piece right there. Again, that's that vuggy quartz. This hole right here, a lot of the clay that came from here came out of that hole. Oh, Mr. O'Malley's out. I guess he decided he wanted some better snack food. Oh well, I'll worry about him later. He'll go in when he wants to. But yeah, I've dug this down to bare rock, and I've shown footage of me out on the end where the vuggy quartz is really thick. Well, I say really thick, over 24 inches anyhow, over here. And the whole side of it goes, and the cliff cuts it off, and then I picked up a lot of that iron ore I've mentioned over in that other pile. In fact, let's go over there and give you an idea of what we're talking about. When Mr. O'Malley's ready to go home, he'll go home on his own. He might get under the other field and start beating the daylights out of people, though, which does worry me. But if he does that, I don't know. I'll just have to try to deal with it somehow. So again, the iron ore that I have piled up here in the back, that's not the supergene formation, but the original raw deposit here. All of that iron ore back in this pile, which again, I'm just reinstating this partly because some people might not have seen me record and document. All this stuff here came from our land. It just broke off as the softer shale and things around it eroded away, and it was high enough in quartz that it didn't want to erode. And some of it's only partly ore and partly chert. And the chert formed at the same time as the iron did because it's quartzite going through the mudstone. And you can see some of it was close to the top, very clean and eroded. Some of it was underground and it was very red still. Now, I don't think I made a video about this before. I meant to. I've gotten so much more supergene formation hematite in here now than I had before. Before I was finding little pieces that were just a couple grams. You know, it's like, yeah, that's nothing to write to a complete stranger in a foreign country over. But I've got, this is since my first report, which was a while ago now. Alright, this is, let me get this, oh, this is not light. Even though it's fluffy, it's not light. This piece and this piece, they're both very dense. Supergene formation, same area over in that field where I was just showing about the torn up fence. You go past it to the other side and there's trenching on the adjacent property over there. On the other side of our property. And so pretty much what we're looking at is they've trenched on both sides of this place. I don't know that they didn't trench here, but here have been houses, multiple houses. Theoretically, that's the fourth house on that same setting right there. We'll call it a house, call it a shack. Anyhow, where that is, there's been 3 houses there before. And so it's been dug a lot, repeatedly. This over here is virgin shale right here, and it'll be dug out more, not so much for mining purposes, but to level the land, because I'm going to put a big garden in there. And up there, I'm pretty sure I'm either totally below or totally above the formation, or the formation pinches off and ignores that little area where that pond, if you will, is. And so, yeah, that hole was dug not to be a hole, but to be level off down lower than this, and this lower than this, so that I can have it where it's all one continuous plane, level all the way from the road all the way out completely to the edge of the garden area. Which again, whether there's iron under here, I have to assume that either it was above it and it's washed away, or it's still below it and it hasn't been exposed. I'd like to think it was below it, but I can't find out till I get as deep as I plan on cutting, because this over here is still 3 or 4 feet higher than where Mr. O'Malley's standing. He's standing on a slab of chert. Now the other side of it though is there are layers of chert that either are a separate formation, it's as high as the back of the motorhome, I mean the high as the road, you know, I mean the surface of the road, not the back of the motorhome, but the high as the road is, going up the hill. And there's either fault lines coming this direction slipping down the hill, or there's separate layers. But where he's standing, I've dug out iron ore over there too in the past. And there's a lot over there. So it's definitely a case that we don't know if the fault line is what's making the difference. But that's my long-winded report on those trenches I meant to show. So I'm going to call that it for this report. Mr. O'Malley, say hi to the camera. Mr. O'Malley, how you doing? Mr. O'Malley, how you doing? He's like, I am going to ignore you. Oh well. See you later.